Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Chiro HD, Evo Creative Media, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 592 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Dan Lyons. And if you want to hear a great message about science, philosophy, and art of chiropractic, stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today is Dan Lyons. We're going to talk about Gonstead. We're going to talk about the Diplomate of Philosophy and Chiropractic, students and new practitioners, and then we're going to jump into social media mainstream versus reality mainstream. And it's going to be a really great conversation today. Dan's on with episode 592, but before we jump into this episode, I let you know the big why. Why do we do what we do over here? It's kind of our anchor statement. Freedom of speech, it's very important. We've never censored anyone. Really cool. I love that about us. I can't say the same about every other media outlet out there. Medical freedom, I think that if people did a bit more discovery on that topic, they'd realize how important it is to them to have freedom of choice for how they take care of them and their families. So chiropractic is something that stands in that gap and protects that. So that's one of the reasons that we support medical freedom and freedom of choice and family health freedom, because they're not the same thing. And you should have a choice of how you raise your family. And hopefully there's chiropractic involved with that. More philosophical, we do protect BJ Palmer's Sacred Trust. It's a very important part of the mantelpiece of chiropractic. And if you guys don't know what that means, go back and do some research and stop this interview and find BJ Palmer's last words. You're going to know more about chiropractic than you ever did previously, I guarantee you. Even if you're a chiropractor and you read it before, do it again. We support subluxation-based chiropractic. I know that we shouldn't have to say that, but a lot of the schools are taking that out of there. Not the schools that support us, Sherman and Life West. They actually sponsor our show, so thank you, Sherman and Life West. And then we do believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence. We believe that when man the physical or a woman the physical gets adjusted, it connects them to the spiritual. And that's a big idea. And I think that that's predicates what this podcast stands for, is the big idea of chiropractic. So with that, Dan Lyons, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jim. It's a long time coming.
Yeah, I'm excited for your projects too. You know, I know you're talking about doing some stuff to help educate and nurture the ideas around students and new practitioners.
Yeah, we got to get them up and running faster. That's a lot of debt compared to when I went to school nearly 30 years ago, and not much has changed outside, and that's why I think one of the reasons we see so many people just doing something other than chiropractic. You said subluxation, centered chiropractic, and I don't. If you take subluxation out, what you don't have chiropractic. I don't understand. I never really understood that phrase. I get everybody wants to bring in their peripheral. You got a couple spoons over here they want to rub on people. And, you got now everybody's doing functional medicine, and, I'm sure they help a lot of people, but we need just good old fashioned, serious chiropractic.
Well, I think we follow trends. And the reason I believe that people are going functional medicine route is because they're following the trends that people are more sick than ever. But they're also blending in chiropractic with that message. And I don't think it's for every chiropractor, but I do think that they should definitely consider staying subluxation centered and making that like the main thing.
The main thing's always got to be the main thing. And, I always said, if you want to have a PT in your clinic, great, hire a PT. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to take any of the focus off that. And sure, I take some supplements because I'm hedging my bets. There's a lot of science out there, and you have to kind of experiment on yourself and see what works. But if you want, I have always said I wanted to live to be 120, and I've beat my body up quite a bit. So I want to make it to 120 as functional. So I need to do whatever it is in addition to chiropractic care. I just got my weekly adjustment this morning to make sure I get there. But I don't want to take my focus off of what I do, which is locating, analyzing, and correcting vertebral subluxation.
I'm going to play that clip a million times.
All right.
I'm just going to cut that one clip, and we're gonna make that like the most sensational clip of chiropractic of 2024.
I love it.
Yeah, because it's what every chiropractor needs to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from a place of power and confidence. And I think that that's something when this debt load is there and it's on these new grads, it's hard for them to focus outside of that zone because it's a very big monster that follows them.
It is. And, I think that we forget that there is nothing more powerful than, universal intelligence and universal forces. And then we have, except kind of innate intelligence, because for the 70, 80, 90, 100, maybe 120 years we have, innate intelligence keeps our body together and functioning in violation of, the universal laws of thermodynamics. I mean, everything wants to go to its lowest energy state as fast as it can. But for those years we're alive, we're given, those universal forces the big chiropractic index finger.
I think what you're talking about just really, it's vitalism. And we were talking earlier about like when people start to age and they're not progressively performing anymore, quality of life starts to become an issue. And that's the thing with the chiropractic profession. Like it does give people a chance to at least have a better quality of life. One of the cliches I've always heard is it gives life to years and years to life.
Yep.
And I believe that, but at a certain point, there is limitations of matter, and our bodies start to deteriorate at a certain path. So, I think it's really important for people to understand that, like the conversations that we're having today about subluxation-based chiropractic, like the reason people don't thrive long term is because they're subluxated, and their bodies are not performing at its highest ability to function and to produce. So.
Absolutely. And, and they're poisoned, realistically. I mean, we eat, what is it, like 86% of the food we eat, I think I just heard on a podcast, is processed, and processed food is, basically ground up. There's a lot more surface area, so it's absorbed a lot easier, and there's all those chemicals in there. But the difference between, anybody can change their own diet. That is really healthcare. It's what you do for yourself. So exercising, making sure you're eating real food, live food, and live food spoils in a day or two if you let it sit out. Cut an apple open, let it sit there. It goes there. Put a steak out on the table for a couple of days. You don't want to eat it. But if the shelf life is longer, then it's really not good for you. But that's something that you do for yourself. You can't adjust yourself. You need to go see your chiropractor to do that. And that's the biggest thing. We need to get the world to understand. I mean, what is it? When we were at Mile High this year, and Kennedy was speaking, he said that United States is 4% of the world's population, yet we have 86% of the world's chronic disease. Or maybe it was 68% of the chronic disease. I don't remember exactly, but we have hugely disproportionate, and it's because we eat a ton of crap largely.
Well, I'm just going to follow up on that, but I don't want to lose track of talking about the Gonstead part of your career and how you got into chiropractic. And so I will say that you're all right about the food. They once said that we are what we eat eats. And I think that if you consider that, and then if it's processed down, you're really getting not much.
Nope.
So I think that that's really important for us to like at least anchor down and know like you can make better health decisions by what you put into this, what you
Yeah,
put into these, and what you put into these. Like
exactly.
what you allow to come in your mouth, like food, like what you eat, like we have to be more considerate of that, especially now.
And innate can only use what it has at its disposal. So if you're feeding it crappy stuff,
Yeah.
then you don't get the quality. You're going to get the best quality product you can, but it may not be what you want.
The fuel source is diminished.
Yep.
So 27 years in chiropractic, Dan.
Almost 28 now.
Almost 28.
When we started talking about doing this, it was closer to 27. It'll be 28 years in February.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're along this journey, 28 years. What was your initial spark to say, I'm going to go be a chiropractor?
Oh man, I don't. Everyone says my story is better than I think it is, but so I originally was trying to decide between going into pro wrestling and medicine, and I know those are very similar fields. And then I broke my neck in a car accident, and it wasn't a big thing, we were going 25 miles an hour, and we hit a stopped car, and I had my head turned, and I hit the roof, and I broke C4 in 2 spots, C5 in 3 spots, completely dislocated 5 on 6, crushed my spinal cord, and still walked out of the emergency room before my buddy, who had a little whiplash and some cuts on his hands. They put me in a collar, sent me home, and the next morning I hurt, and something was wrong, and they told me, I might have some ligament damage and I should probably see a neurosurgeon. And I had a hard collar on, but in the week before I ended up having my surgery, I lost like 50 pounds. I just shriveled. My friends from the gym would come over and go, dude, we can watch your arm shrink as I'm sitting here. I'm like, shut up, get out of here. So I had surgery. The surgeon was, very good. When I was at Palmer, there were times I'd pick up a issue of spine, and he had authored every article in the issue. So a prolific surgeon, but he was just a jerk. And with my 22-year-old, 21-year-old croc brain still going, I associated medicine with, if you're going to be great, you got to be a jerk. And so I didn't want to do that. And then I remembered my chiropractor who I saw growing up, and he was a nice guy. He really knew everybody. His travel card, was like, this is the sheet you sent me on things, but it'd be like your name and a bunch of little, listings and ticks off on what he did. But he knew everything about everybody. He knew their families and everything, because you could hear through the walls, because his walls were also that thick. And he did well for himself. And I called him up and he said, yes, I think absolutely you should go to Palmer and be a chiropractor. And so, the rest, as they say, is history. And then I walk into Palmer. I'm 6'6". I think at that point I was back up to probably like 245, 250 pounds. And I had long hair. It was halfway between my shoulders and my waist. I had a big skeleton dangling earring or something, snakeskin boots, and I walk in, and a couple of guys that I'm still, very close friends with, they're like, that guy's terrifying. We need to make sure he's our friend. And they invited me out to a workshop, and I said, I can't go this week. I'll go next week. And because I already promised someone else that the gal that got me to go to Palmer, I was going to go to a workshop that she was involved in. And it was the same workshop, and it was the Troxell intern program, and teaching Gonstead. And that's kind of my introduction to Gonstead, which is funny because I grew up 22 miles from the Gonstead Clinic. The first time I ever golfed was at the golf course right next to the Gonstead Clinic. And I'd been in the room when my parents got adjusted by Gonstead and don't remember that. And I remember all kinds of dumb stuff from being a kid. So it's kind of like the universe, I guess, the universe is kind of saying, hey, you should be a Gonstead chiropractor. And I just never saw it.
So as I'm thinking about like everything you're saying of getting into chiropractic, surgery, recovery, I am curious about what you did to do in recovery, but I'm also really curious about the why Gonstead's so important as a technique to chiropractors.
All right. So what did I do to recover?
Yes,
From my surgery?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people are, they think that chiropractic is the only thing that they'll ever need in their lifetime.
Oh yeah. Well,
But I mean, our audience, but like
yeah.
sometimes we get injured and we have to recover.
Yeah. I'm actually in January. I'm teaching a class on working through injuries. Because you get hurt as a human being, and then you got to go to the office and see patients. And
We never
sometimes you get
talk
hurt
about
really
that
bad.
though. We never talk about recovery.
Yeah. I was young. I was 21 and a half, 22. So, I mean, I did what every 22-year-old does. I drank some beer and I did all the wrong things. I probably could have recovered much better and much faster, but you're already so bulletproof at that age. You don't think about it. And they obviously didn't give me anything. And, it was June 12th, 1990s when I broke my neck. I started chiropractic college 2 years later. So, and I didn't know anything, really about taking care of people with
Injuries.
fusions and stuff, because I have a 4, 5, 6 fusion in my neck. But it's helped me. Having my fusion has helped me take care of other people. And it was interesting. I remember one time Greg Plogger, Gonstead chiropractor out in San Francisco, who there's a Plogger's Purple Book in the Gonstead world. It's called the Purple Book. And where it was like an updated chapters where they had everything in the Cartesian coordinates. So you got, negative theta z and all that stuff in there. A lot of research where the old chapters from, when Dr. Gonstead was alive in the 60s, it's just his findings. And Greg was doing a pediatric book and he was living at Palmer at the time, and we helped him out with all the film analyzation. And I had him come in and teach a class for the students and the interns on spinal fractures, and it was really kind of unsettling to me because there was so many. I'd see these cases, see the X-rays, and I'm like, that's me. Where chiropractors were correcting dislocations and having better results. I had a bunch of fractures. They definitely would not have worked on me, but we are capable of doing way more than definitely we're taught in school. And a lot of it are probably our malpractice providers would not be happy with us doing, but it is possible if you have a very specific and scientific approach, as opposed to the kind of whack-a-mole stuff we see in TikToks all the time.
Yeah, I think you nailed a lot of important topics there. The specific adjustment style of Gonstead, I've been in this profession 15 years. I don't really have to say anything kind or approving to anything, but what I've heard over my first 10 years was if a chiropractor was Gonstead trained from Palmer, that was like the gold standard. And, I grew up in Davenport, Iowa. That was like Palmer land. So yeah. I grew up with a different standard of what chiropractic was too. Up until 15 years ago, I'm just being honest, I didn't even know there was another chiropractic college other than Palmer. I didn't.
Yeah, I can understand that. You're at the Mecca, so why would you think there's anything else there?
But I just thought that every chiropractor should know Gonstead and they should be from Palmer.
That's true. And Gonstead, I have a lot of upper cervical friends, and upper cervical chiropractors and Gonstead chiropractors, we all agree on specificity. We all pretty much use X-ray. Most upper cervical chiropractors and all Gonstead chiropractors are going to use instrumentation. I got a couple here. I got, an EDL, an old EDL, and the new X scope. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 old scopes sitting up on a shelf there.
Why do scopes matter so much?
Because you have to find the interference to the mental impulse, and it's one of the ways it's expressed as heat. And there's normal physiology and then there's abnormal physiology, but we really don't know which is which. Actually, abnormal physiology, you could argue, is normal for that individual at that time because they're subluxated. But the scope starts to make it more objective, and you're starting to see, there's no reason that you should have a huge temperature difference side to side, and there's no reason as you run that scope down, that needle should continually jump unless there is a scar tissue or something, a blemish, a pimple or something there. But as you learn how to use the instrument, that helps you understand that, and so that's not really a reading. So you have to look at in the philosophy world, and I guess the Gonstead world, and the subluxation centered world, based world, whatever you want to call it. We have an acronym for the subluxation. It's called MOPI: misalignment, occlusion, pressure, and interference. And you have to have all four of those there in order to be a subluxation. So you can have a misalignment that does not cause interference. Well, you don't have a subluxation. You don't want to adjust that. And you can have interference without a misalignment, but then again, that's not a subluxation. There's something else. There's a tumor. There's something else going on there that is not causing that interference. So we have to have a rubric, I guess you will, of this is how we know that there's a subluxation there. You can't just say, oh, this spot's high or this spot's sore, which is a lot of what we do. Or stuck. There's a lot of reasons stuck. I remember when I was in school and I had long hair. One time I'm in a workshop and this guy's palpating my neck, and he's like, oh, this is really stuck, and I can feel his hands starting to slide around like he's gonna adjust me. And I'm like, hold on a second there, cowboy. And I flip my hair up. I'm like, that's always going to be stuck. I don't want you to unstuck that part. That would be very bad for me and my quality of life. And so we have all those tools, and in the Gonstead world, there's a diagram that I use all the time. Dr. Phyllis Markham, one of my she's like a grandmother to me. She's the one that got Dr. Gonstead to start teaching, and there's the subluxations at the center, and you have the history, and all chiropractors should take a history unless you work at the joint. You have instrumentation, you have static palpation, motion palpation, instrumentation, X-ray, and visualization. I came up with one extra, and I must have said one of them twice. But
Okay.
if all those things tell you that T12 is subluxated, then you can be pretty darn sure that it's subluxated. And if they all say a different segment, then you should probably go back and start all over and see what you missed.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Chiro HD, Evo Creative Media, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now let's hustle.
Well, one of my mentors, he would always tell me that if we go out of sequence, we have to go back and repeat stuff a second time. And I think what you just done is a great explanation of the science of chiropractic and the objectivity of chiropractic, and how you can locate it, detect it, and then correct it. I mean, everything is applied now. Like you've explained the method, now it's applied. And I think that's really cool. I think it's really important for people to hear that, especially the part that I want to get into next is like the philosophy. Why did you take an extra? Because I read your bio, dude. It was like, if I'd have printed the whole thing out for as many speaking gigs as you've done, like I'd run out of printer paper.
There's a few there.
But as I looked through that, I'm like, and you decided to go get this Diplomate in philosophy. So how did that all come into play, and why is philosophy on that level important?
Well, I took a philosophy class in undergrad, and I always loved it. And there's always something deeper. It's like that quote I read you about. If I may, I'll pull it back up real quick. We are like books. Most people only see our cover. The minority read only the introduction. Many people believe the critics. Few will know our content. From Emile Zola. Emile, if you're listening, love it. I don't know who Emile is. And I just found that the other day on the internet. But it's true. And philosophy is the only thing that really digs down and gets to the root of the subject. You're trying to intellectually break things down. And, then you get to chiropractic college at Palmer and they say chiropractic is a philosophy, a science, and an art. Well, okay. So the quote starts with philosophy. So we got to go start studying philosophy. And so, you start reading the green books and start, at the Palmer archives, you can go in there and all the old PhCs, you can get a copy, order a copy of all those PhCs. And you start reading these things. And I'm like, man, I want a PhC. I want to be one of those guys. And so then all of a sudden, Dr. Barge is at the school and they're offering this. And so my buddy, Eric Russell, he and I said, okay, we're going to do this. So we get down there and then we, make some amazing friends. I have friends throughout the profession, but really the closest people I have in the profession are the people I went through those 3 years of the philosophy diplomate with. And it solves so many problems. The diagram that Dr. Phyllis created with the scoping and the x-ray and all that stuff, that's not a Gonstead thing. Yes, Gonstead doctors do use it, but everybody in the profession can get an x-ray machine, can buy a scope. We all palpate. We all should take a history. We all have eyes and can visualize. So we should all be doing those things. It's a chiropractic thing. And one of the things I teach a lot lately, teach at Sherman, at their Lyceum regularly, is Gonstead for the non-Gonstead chiropractor. And I'm basically trying to break down the tribalism and the walls and get everybody on the same page. If we all agree this is the subluxation, then that takes the confusion out from all the public, and then they're more open to chiropractic care.
I think that's really it's a standard.
Yes.
And once you understand the standard of a technique and you understand the standard of analysis and then delivery, and then you have philosophy that roots it, that's a real fundamental approach. And that's really why having you on today and talking to you about Gonstead and the Diplomate program was really, I think, important for our listeners just to hear that from you, because after learning and going through that and seeing what happens and why those fundamentals are important to own, you have to own that. And that's what, to me, makes chiropractic special, is those specific things that we talked about today.
Yeah. I mean, and if you don't own the philosophy, then you struggle with the science, and then you rely solely on the art, and that makes you, a manual medicine practitioner. And, our philosophy, it makes a promise on what is possible, and the science quantifies and validates it and shows what works and what doesn't. And then the art is how you deliver that promise of the philosophy. And it's just that continual cycle through there. And, we need more philosophers. The Diplomate is, it's a standalone year one that some people never go on and fully get the Diplomate, take years 2 and 3. Years 2 and 3, we start again this year in March. And when is this going to go out?
We pre-record 6 months in advance. So today,
Okay.
This is live. We can share it. People can watch it. But your actually edited episode comes out probably in June.
Okay. So if you're watching live, you could sign up and go to chiroprogress.org and sign up. Sign up before the end of the month, before the end of the day, December 31st. You get $500 off years 2 and 3. First class is in March, so you have until March to sign up.
Well, I think it's really cool. It's cool that people know that they can go and join and get their position within chiropractic too, to have philosophy and own it.
Yeah, and you're taught by all diplomates that are dedicated. None of us get paid to do this. We we go down there. We don't get if we take time out of the office, we're not compensated for that. We do it because we love chiropractic and we want more chiropractors. And we just finished last year. We graduated a Diplomate class that was held up by COVID. That was horrible. And because half the class was from out of the country and they couldn't come into the country. And we do these in person because it's so important to have that connection point. Like I said, my best friends in the profession are in that philosophy group. And if we were doing it online, you just don't get that. You don't get the same interaction. The ideas don't flow and you don't grow and learn as fast. But we had 2 LCP classes last year and the year before. And it looks like right now, the current Diplomate class will probably have, 30, I'm trying to get it up a little higher, but, 30 other Gonstead chiropractors in that Diplomate class.
Well, I listened to the message and I think it's really strong and effective because we do need to create more powerful chiropractors that have that method and mentality. It's really important. And that what you guys are doing actually is protecting the sacred trust.
Amen.
And what you guys are doing is actually supporting the things that our show stands for. And I think that I couldn't have a better guest on today to talk about these things. And just to be clear, like 60,000 people went to our website last month and listened to our shows.
That's awesome.
Like, just thinking about like this message that we're sharing today, getting to potentially 15 to 20,000 people that they wouldn't necessarily understand what chiropractic is. Mm-hmm. So we have to give it to them. That's what this podcast has done over the past 6.5 years. Is we just consistently given it the message to people, and having your message today has been really awesome. Let's close out with a couple things. I know we wanted to talk about social media versus reality and helping the younger stage chiropractors understand chiropractic a little bit different from being new in the profession and what it means to, I guess, understand social media versus reality.
Which we want to start with?
Let's talk to them about, I guess, some ideas around being a new practitioner.
All right. So, when I went to school, they would use the old line from the Field of Dreams: "Build it and they will come." And that's just not true. I mean, it never was true. It was a good line for a movie, but unless you are even if you're the only chiropractor in 100 miles, you put an office up, if they don't know who you are and what you do, they're not going to come. So you have to get out. And when I came up with, my wife and I came up with this idea, I'd asked Jim to be on the podcast or our program. It's not really going to be a podcast, probably more like a Facebook membership type thing. But we've got to have people that understand how to communicate a message. And, everybody, every time I'm speaking, I get up on my soapbox, say, stop doing these dumb videos where you're making a bunch of popping noises. It doesn't help anybody. It scares people. And there's always someone, well, I get a lot of new patients from it. I'm like, how many do you turn away that'll never go see a chiropractor because they didn't like you? Didn't like that. And you're reducing what we do down to just the adjustment. The analysis that leads you to your adjustment is really the most important part of the visit. But you don't ever see a urologist or a gynecologist or a proctologist, doing their, hey, come on in the office and let me show you. This is Carol. This is Bob. It doesn't happen. We don't need to do that. There's so many better things we could do out there to promote chiropractic. So we got to get away from that. There's a positive and a negative, and everybody's tied up in, well, so-and-so is doing this, so-and-so is doing that. Who cares? Worry about you. What are you doing? What good content are you producing? And don't worry about what it looks like they have. That's probably not what they have. And even if they have it and you want it, you got to work for it. You don't watch it on a screen and say, man, I wish I had that. You got to get down there and work. And at some point, there's just good old fashioned roll up your sleeves and get to work involved.
Yeah, when people understand that it's not showing the work, that's something that I even was asked many years ago, like, should chiropractors make videos of themselves adjusting? Now it's become commonplace for you to be able to go and do a Google search. But even when Russell Brunson wrote his first book, .com Secrets, I think,
Mm-hmm.
he had a buddy of mine, Chad Woolner, was his friend who's a chiropractor. And Russell's like, hey, man, I watched these videos on YouTube. And Russell was a wrestler. And he had said, hey, I went and watched these videos of chiropractic on YouTube, and then I went and adjusted all my team. And his buddy was the chiropractor, Chad Woolner, was like, hey, man, you can't do that. Like, you can't, like, watch what we do and go do that. And I think it's a real thing that, like, people that have the wrong information and don't understand the practice of chiropractic, they get, too much information is always not good. And I think when people see these X, Y, Z straps or whatever people are doing, and just pulling on the spinal cord, that's not always the greatest idea either. And you shouldn't show people that constantly, because it does sensationalize, but it's not protecting the sacred trust.
Yeah.
And it really is exposing chiropractic in an unnecessary fashion.
Every day, I see patients that would most likely have severe or at least significant spinal trauma and damage if they had the ring dinger thing done, the Y-strap stuff done. But he never shows, this is how I determined this is something I can do for this patient. And I don't know, maybe he doesn't. But he hasn't been sued that I know of, so I'm assuming he does a pretty good job of screening those people out.
Well, I believe Dr. Johnson does do x-rays.
Yeah, but he never shows any of that.
And
he lay on the table.
He is a Palmer grad.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding everybody.
Well, Dan, is there anything that we didn't talk about? I know I sent you over a bunch of questions.
There's a couple,
like to touch on?
I don't know. We got, the project that my wife and I are working on is to help students succeed. The analogy I use is the school gives you the bricks that for you to build your house, but they don't do a great job of, none of them do a great job of giving you the mortar. There's so much that you don't learn in a business class. There's so much you don't learn in interpersonal communications, running an office, negotiating contracts, reading contracts, dealing with attorneys. There's all kinds of things that if you are going to be, even if you're going to be associate, you're looking at a contract and you don't know if it's a good contract or not. You just are basically probably looking at dollars just like everybody else. So we want to help give everybody the tools to succeed more right out of the box. And we're going to have other experts like Jim. We have I just did an interviewed a friend up in Minnesota who he's got a big family and he's got a big practice, and his family, his work and life interactions, his family did not suffer at all for him being there. He didn't teach a lot. Now he's starting to teach as they get older. They all come with. It's phenomenal. But we need more. If chiropractic is going to deliver the promise that our philosophy should, it shouldn't just be in our nervous systems. It should be in every chiropractor's life, that we're thriving in, or with our families, we're thriving physically, we're thriving financially. All those things have to happen.
The terms and conditions of a quality life.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to steal that from you. I'll give you full credit.
And I believe that there are terms and conditions when it comes to finding fulfillment.
Amen.
And I think a big part of becoming the chiropractor is a lot of fulfillment and actually getting the passage to practice.
Yeah.
And then you get the pursuit of happiness. And then you have to start realizing who your identity is and how you want to craft your life within your identity. And I think a lot of times when people get to that next stage, they go coachless. They don't have a method to follow. They don't understand what their next terms and conditions of life are. And they get busy having families and starting practices or becoming an associates. And the last thing that they're thinking about is, gosh, I have to read a contract.
Yeah. Everything in your life should be intentional.
Well, Dr. Dan Lyons, you're 592 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Thanks for being our guest today.
I think I'll get a tattoo 592. So thanks for having me, Jim. Long time coming. You know, I think I first met you at Mile High, and then you put out that message, anybody want to go to Mexico? And I said yes. And so then we went down to Mexico together. Then I'm sitting at the party in Davenport. I don't know if that was 2019 or 2021 for Palmer Homecoming. And all of a sudden you're standing next to me and I'm like, what are you doing here? He goes, I'm from town. And, you know, it's just a perfect example of you never know how far reaching something you may think, say, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow. I mean, you're a living example of that.
Yeah. That's the power of connection, the power of storytelling.
Yep.
You know, that's really what podcasting is a storytelling, and it's platforming. And if you deliver the truth well within this platform, it gives a huge amplifier to this big message and this big idea of chiropractic. And, you know, everywhere you go, people need a little bit more of this truth, and they need a little bit more connection. So whether it's in Davenport, Iowa, or the Gonstead Clinic, or the next Mile High, I look forward to seeing you and reconnecting with you. If people wanted to reach out to you or book you or have you speak for them or join your program, where should we send them to?
My email is drdan@precisionchirogb.com.
PrecisionChiroGB.com
for Green Bay.
I didn't want to tell him. I let you tell him. So reach out to Dan Lyons at Dr. Dan at precisionchirogb.com. Book him for your next speaking engagement. Check out his program with his wife, Brooke. And I really appreciate you being on with this episode, and look forward to the next time.
I look forward to the next time I see you too. Thanks for having me on, Jim.
All right, man. Bye for now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.